Our guests in the studio are Steve Kitchen, designer of an incredible new game, Space Shuttle from Activision, and Chris Crawford, one of the top game designers with Atari. Gary?
Steve and Chris, you both build computer-based games. Do you call yourselves designers or programmers?
I call myself a designer because most of the sweat and blood I expend occurs in the design phase, not in the programming phase. I spend a great deal of time worrying about what my audience will experience in the game, and only towards the end of the project do I actually get down to writing any code.
When you think about the design of the game, what are the elements of the game that make it interesting?
Well, that has to do a great deal with what I'm trying to accomplish. I set a goal. I want a game to achieve a certain effect. I want to somehow communicate a message to my audience. That message then dictates the topic and the style of the game, the nature of the graphics, the feel. That's what the texture of the game that I'm trying to build into it. That's what I spend most of my time worrying about.
Chris, you're talking more like a writer rather than a computer programmer. Steve, is that how you see what you do?
That's basically what we are. We're writers. We're writing a book, a novel, creating a vicarious universe in this computer program. We have to model everything we want, put every small detail in. Very often, in my game, for instance, I had to do extensive research for a year and a half to understand my subject before I could distill the important aspects out and then put them into this cartridge.
Like a writer would.
Exactly like a writer would. When a writer writes a book, the book is a vicarious universe. You read it and become part of it. It's the same thing. When you play these games, these programs, you vicariously become part of the universe that the programmer puts into it.
Okay, you've got Space Shuttle up here, and give us a demonstration of how this works.
Well, this is an automatic demo flight we're going to fly. This is a complete Space Shuttle mission from launch to landing. This is actually themed after the STS-2 flight back in November of 1981. We're starting off now at Cape Kennedy in the morning. The clouds are rolling by, the sun is coming up, and we're doing our countdown now. Now at T-minus 4 seconds, we're going to turn our main engines on. You're going to see the thrust indicators at the top of the screen there moving along. There we go. At T plus 3 seconds, the solid rocket boosters are going to turn on, and we're going to go through the clouds and off the pad. And there we go. Now, the aspect of the game here is to fly the Space Shuttle successfully into a 210 nautical mile orbit, doing all the control functions that an astronaut would really do, setting your yaw and your pitch, keeping on a trajectory line. At 26.2 nautical miles, the solid rocket boosters will jettison off. Now, this is a very important point of accuracy, is there's a yellow flash. There we go. This is something that wasn't noted until STS-1 when the first astronauts went up, that this actually happened. I had to find all of these details out about what you would experience if you were inside of the Space Shuttle and you were doing the flying, so that when you play this game, you feel like you've actually flown.
Steve, it seems to me the incredible thing is this game is running on an Atari 2600, not a computer. How do you squeeze all of this into that unit?
Well, it takes a lot of time programming, coding. You have to model the universe as you feel it should really be, and then you have to find how you can fit it all in piece by piece. You start off with the basic mission, and then you add features and you add the functions all along the way. When I finished the game, I was not happy with it, and I had an additional list of 146 separate items I wanted to put in that I still felt were important. I spent an additional 3 months finishing those off and getting them all in. I wanted this to be absolutely accurate and absolutely complete. And it
you
is.
Put this all inside of how big a ROM?
It's an 8K cartridge.
8K cartridge. That's an incredible amount of...
It took 13 months of programming, and a lot of that time was spent putting it all together. Now, we've just achieved orbit. There's the Earth stream rolling underneath. The external tank will jettison. There it goes. And we've docked with an orbiting satellite, which actually was themed after the Skylab. In fact, Dr. Ed Gibson did a review on the game, and he noted that it looked like you were trying to fly into his old nemesis in space. And then we do our deorbit, and we come in for a landing at Edwards Air Force Base.
Now, one thing unique you did in adapting this game to the 2600 is using the switches in the 2600 as functional switches. How did you do that?
And what we had to do was I had to throw out all the old ideas of what this machine would do. This was originally a video game console, so I said, look, all these switches are controlled by the computer. I'm going to redefine them to be computer switches. I'm going to control the main engines, the backup engines, the cargo bay doors, the landing gear, the sequence of information on the screen. It became so different that we had to develop an overlay to fit over the screen. We had to develop what's called a cheat sheet, which is just what the astronauts use. This gives you all the instructions that are necessary to fly your shuttle. And the instruction book is 30 pages long. And it gives you a lot of detail into exactly how to fly the space shuttle. And basically, it's a small flight manual. We provide a glossary. We provide drawings of the space shuttle, engine indicators. Here's a side view of the space shuttle that we provide. So really, you understand all about the space shuttle in order to fly this game accurately.
You get a little pilot's license when you get through this?
If you fly successfully, you receive a patch. And if you fly just as an astronaut would, you might get your wings. We're entering the Earth's atmosphere now, and you see we're getting the ionization cone that appears around the space shuttle. If you saw the movie The Right Stuff, you would see in the sequence with John Glenn, this is what the astronauts see in the window. This is hot ionized gas being superheated by the friction of the shuttle on the way in. We've even lost our signals. We've lost our altitude and speed information, and we've lost our computer screens.
Steve, it seems piloting the space shuttle is very difficult to do, one would think. Can a kid or a normal person actually pull this off?
Well, what I did when I designed this was I understood that problem. Having the average individual fly the space shuttle would take years of work. But I looked at how NASA trains its astronauts, and they start off, first of all, by giving them a lot of book exercises. They give them film strips of what it's like to fly the space shuttle. This is flight number 1. You're seeing essentially a film strip. You can pick up the joystick and take control at any time you want to, but you don't have to. There's a second flight called a training flight, and that basically is like flying in a simulator. You can make mistakes, you can make errors, and the computer will compensate, and it will let you know. And then flight 3 is the actual real thing. So you work your way up to flying the actual mission. You can get into it very easily, and then work your way up and finally try to achieve your wings.
The interesting thing about this game, I think, is that it's an educational learning experience as well as
vicariously educational.
Right.
You're not sitting there playing flashcards. You're learning about one of the most technologically advanced items today. Well, there are the dual sonic booms that occur. The first one was the space shuttle. The second one was the chase planes. And we're coming in now at Edwards Air Force Base. When you get done mastering this game, you've effectively learned all about what an astronaut does when he's in orbit. So the next time you see a launch go off, you're going to know what he has to do, when he has to do it, and what he goes through.
It's incredible. We need another minute or so before we land.